Now, to get back to our real program for the evening, I'm going to introduce Stephen Gonzalez, who will tell you a little bit about NASA's technology transfer program and introduce two people who are working with NASA to take that technology and do something right here in Brooklyn. Stephen, you have your mic.
I got my mic.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, Stephen?
Thank you. All right. Excellent. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Ellen. Appreciate that.
No, that's a ship.
It's like, oh, too close to the speaker. So, thank you to everyone for braving the cold. Coming up from Houston, this is just a little cold for us. I really appreciate everyone coming out here for this evening. What I want to share with you tonight is a little bit about what NASA does to transform life on Earth, and specifically what we wanted to share with you two companies that are transforming life here in New York City. And so the first thing I would like to ask is, how many have heard the story that from NASA, the technologies that come out of it are Tang and Velcro? All right, a few. Usually, most people, that's what the stories that they hear. And I like the story because it at least gets people talking about how NASA is transforming life here on Earth. The truth is that neither one of those actually came from NASA, but the technology that actually came from NASA are even much better, and you use them every day in your life. So, what I wanted to talk about is first some of those technologies, and then also a partnership that we have here with the New York Space Alliance to be able to connect our technology to startups, and some of the programs that we have in place to be able to help startups be able to access our technology. So first, talk a little bit about where we're going. So right now we have, this year the Vice President has charged NASA to return to the moon, to have the first woman and the next man to be able to be there within 5 years in 2024. But our sights are towards Mars. We go to the moon in order to be able to understand how to enable that 3-year mission to Mars. Because right now for Mars it's a 6-month journey out there, a year and a half of exploring and understanding the planet, and also waiting for them to line back up again in order to allow for the 6-month journey back to the Earth. And so in order to do that, we still don't know how to have someone live off the Earth for 3 years. We don't understand how to make sure that they have all of the water, air, food, medicine that they need. We don't know how to protect them from the radiation, from the harsh environment of space. The way that microgravity and the different gravity, how that will impact. So we need to be able to learn more on the moon before we're able to go on to Mars, and to be able to make sure that we bring back our astronauts home safely from Mars through the exploration on the moon. And so when we go by 2024, this time we're going to be doing it with a commercial community. We're going to be able to bring with us companies that have been seeded from technologies and capabilities and expertise from NASA over the last 50 years. So the first time we went with all NASA resources, all of the technology that we were able to get from the companies that we're contracting, but this time we are putting calls out and seeing what the commercial space industry is able to provide us to be able to get there. And so what you see here in the early 20s, 2021, 2022, we'll have companies like Astrobotics, a new company in Pittsburgh that is going to provide us with commercial capability to land supplies and experiments on the moon. We have another one in Houston called Intuitive Machines that will also, only about 3-4 years old, that is providing us with commercial lunar capability there. So capability companies, assets that we hadn't had before now are available to us to pre-position capability there. So when our astronauts return in 2024, there's already some infrastructure, and we're asking other companies to come up with designs for habitats, with other designs for helping us with using resources on the moon. So it's an incredible time for students that are graduating, because not only do you have the opportunities in NASA, but you have all these new space companies and all these emerging space companies that they can jump to be a part of. So as we go to the moon and as we go on to Mars, we continue to solve the impossible. We come up with solutions for questions we hadn't dreamed of before. And in the process, we end up with technologies like the camera in your cell phone. It was actually an engineer at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory that was trying to figure out how do you take an image and put it on electronics. And it's wonderful when he tells the story, when Eric Folsom tells the story about trying to make that technology possible, all of his colleagues told him that he was an idiot, that it could not be done, that you couldn't make this happen. And now, years later, all my children and grandchildren are out there posting pictures of lunches and breakfasts from the technology that NASA provided through these cell phones. But it is technologies like this that is a reality that is transforming life on Earth. And my favorite is what we did with the Children's Hospital in Houston. The Children's Hospital came to NASA and they said they were having a challenge in that when they transport their premature infants, a lot of the vibrations that they're subjected to from moving from room to room, facility to facility, would damage their internal organs, that the vibrations would hurt them, and unfortunately some of them would die just from the transportation. So they asked, do we have any technology to allow these children to be transported without those vibrations? And for us, our astronauts have to exercise on the space station 2 to 3 hours a day to maintain their muscle strength, to maintain their bone strength. And so they exercise on treadmills and exercise bikes. And left unchecked, the vibrations from those equipment will ruin the experiments on board the International Space Station. So in Houston, we have technology, expertise, and facilities to be able to create a carrier for these children, so now they can be transported from facility to facility, room to room, without being subjected to vibrations, and protecting the lives of these premature infants. But on top of that, back again at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, we have a technology out there. As they continue to go further and further into outer space and go into the further regions of space, they're listening for these tiny signals to understand the origins of the universe, to be able to find these exoplanets that were talked about before. And so they have to weed noise in space to find these small signals. And so by weeding, the technology that they use and the algorithms that they use to be able to find these really small signals actually was used by a company to create a technology called Finder. And in the earthquake in Nepal, they were able to use this technology from the algorithms from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory to be able to find 4 individuals that were still alive, buried underneath the rubble there in Nepal. And what's exciting here in New York is the growing, and I just found out, the continually growing commercial space market here in New York. And this is where historically a lot of our technologies have been spun out into other industries, but now we're seeing an appetite and a capability to move our technology out to seed new space companies. And that's where last year we have partnered up with the New York Space Alliance to be able to see what more we can do to grow that ecosystem here. And one example of how we do this is a company by the name of Bigelow Aerospace. Bob Bigelow in Las Vegas had come to us a number of years ago and wanted to see if we can use an inflatable habitat to create the first hotel up in space. And so for us, we had a project back in the late 90s to be able to create this inflatable habitat. We had a challenge that when we launch these habitats into space, we want to give them the astronauts a lot of room, either on the moon or Mars, to be able to live in. And if you've seen the movie The Martian, you're seeing the type of habitat we would want. Challenge is, how do you inflate it without it exploding when you pressurize it? And how do you build it out of material that will protect it from the micrometeors that would impact it? Because up in space, circling around the Earth, these things can travel at 17,000 miles per hour. And in one shuttle mission, a paint chip was embedded into the window of the shuttle about 1/4 of an inch because of the speeds that it was traveling. So you can just imagine what it would do to a material that in space. So we perfected the technology and put it on the shelf. Bob Bigelow came out, created a 2/3 scale version of it, and now it's up there circling around in space, waiting for the Uber rides to be able to take up his paying customers. And so while he's doing that, he said, well, NASA, you probably could use some more closet space on board the International Space Station. I've commercialized this technology. How about if I spin it back into you? And sure enough, 3 years ago, we launched on SpaceX the Bigelow module, attached it, inflated it, and now we use it to be able to put our supplies when we do resupply missions up into the space station. And he's looking for projects to be able to provide a habitat on the moon. He's working with other companies to be able to put gateways up there. So technology that came from Houston, spun out, creating new industries. And we're looking to see what more can be done with other startups around the country and here in New York City. And this is just a tip of the iceberg. This is just a sampling of the technologies that we have. And every year we put out a catalog there that shows all of the new technologies that have transformed life here on Earth in all the industries, from medical to energy to construction, as you'll hear in a little bit. And so if you're curious and you want ideas to spark to see how you might be able to create a company from our technology, go here. And then afterwards, come to look for our technology at technology.nasa.gov. Because what we're looking for and what we're doing with ecosystems around the country is trying to get more people to license our technology. We have about 1,400 technologies. And what you see in the red are those technologies that have been licensed. So only about 20% of our technologies have been licensed. 80% are still available for the public to be able to transform life here on Earth, or to be able to create space companies that will enable us to return to the moon and to contribute to this trillion-dollar economy. So if you're interested in the technology, at technology.nasa.gov, we have them categorized into 15 buckets. So if you want to build if you have an idea for a medical technology company, come here first to see whether or not we have technology that can help seed your company. If you have something for advanced manufacturing, come here and you can find the technology. And when you go there, you'll see a bunch of technology lists, and on every technology, if you click on it, you'll see a 2-pager write-up on it, talking about what was the problem we were trying to solve, what was the solution that we came with, what were the potential markets that we see for applications for it, and then we have a link to the actual patent, so you can dive down and to see as much detail as you want. And then if you're interested, you can click on a link to be able to start the application to license our technology. And if you're more of a software person versus hardware, we have 1,000 applications that are available. It is an easy process to be able to access our software, to be able to use it, to be able to embed it into your company. It is similar to the portal that you'll have them grouped into our 15 categories to be able to see whether or not we have technology, medical, or manufacturing that you're able to leverage and to be able to help seed your company. And then the opportunity for startups is something that we started about 4 years ago, called Startup NASA. Traditionally, a lot of our technology has been licensed to mid-sized to large-sized companies. And so when we saw 80% of the technology still available, we thought, why aren't more startups coming and licensing our technology? So we kicked off this program so that startups would have, for the first 3 years of their life, be able to license our technology with no application fee and no licensing fee for 3 years. And we thought that by lowering that barrier, that we'd have a whole lot more startups coming in and to be able to license our technology. Unfortunately, for us in Houston, that hasn't been the case. And we're looking to see maybe then there is a better way to be able to connect to startups by connecting to ecosystems. Because we found that startups, number one, think that what happens in space stays in space. And unlike Vegas, that doesn't have to be, that actually what happens in space can be transformed life here on Earth. And so we needed a translator. Also, people didn't know how to access our technology or that it was available. So that a year ago, we actually launched an agreement and a partnership with the New York Space Alliance to be able to connect our technology to the New York ecosystem. And last year, we found, New York Space Alliance found us 10 companies to be able to connect to 10 of our technologies. Another program that we have that also helps with small businesses and startups is something called the Small Business Innovative Research Program. And it's a program that allows us to be able to provide funding to small businesses that are trying to solve one of our problems. And so first phase of that, you get $75,000 to be able to come up with a proof of concept. Second phase is about almost $1 million for 2 years to be able to develop a prototype. And the third phase is commercialization. So through this program, actually, in Houston, we had asked a company to figure out how do you enable 2 vehicles in space to autonomously dock with one another. And the company came up with a solution to be able to, with an algorithm and some LiDAR technology, to enable that precision docking. Well, that technology enabled LASIK eye surgery. And that market came from this company and this small business back in Houston back in the 80s. And so NASA invests almost $200 million into this program. And so if you're curious about, and you have a company that is looking to be able to solve some of our problems, go to the SBIR webpage for NASA, and you'll see all the challenges. And what's wonderful about that program is that that investment, that $75,000 or the nearly $1 million of investment, NASA gets no equity. NASA takes no position in it. It is a grant, and so it is free money for those small companies. And so finally, a little bit more about New York Space Alliance. Last year, we launched a program. Tonight, you'll hear from one of the companies, Capsule, that has actually gone through and is licensing technology from one of our NASA centers in California. This summer, we signed on the 50th anniversary of us landing on the moon. We signed the second phase of that agreement where New York Space Alliance, along with finding us startups to license our technology, now is finding startups and companies in the New York ecosystem to help us in our return to the moon by 2024. One company that they found for us and that we're working is an architecture firm here, SOM, that is coming up with some innovative solutions for lunar architectures for our return to the moon. And so if you don't know Sydney, please visit with Sydney. He can connect you with this program and the great opportunities that we have through NISA. And then finally, if you're from out of town, we're doing things all around the country. This program here that started off in New York that is successful, we're doing now in South Texas with a group down there called Rockets and Rigs at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. We just came back from Boise, Idaho, out there in the Northwest. They're wanting to move technology out there. New Space New Mexico is a new organization going up there, and next week go out to Puerto Rico to be able to see technology. And right now there was one small company that was taking our technology to provide clean water in case there was another event like Maria that they just had. And then if you aren't aware of it, every year in Houston we have something called SpaceCom. It's an event that we bring together 6 industries: aerospace with energy, medical, advanced manufacturing, agribusiness, and maritime, to see what is the opportunities for commerce across those 6 and what are the technologies, solutions that might be able to happen across. And every year we have an entrepreneur summit on that, and this year will be the largest one that we've had. Every year it continues to grow. Google, actually, the local Google, actually connected to us through NISA, is now participating in that and providing $100,000 worth of support and prizes to the winning company for the SpaceCom Entrepreneur Summit. So it's happening in a couple of weeks. All the startups are selected for that, but next year, if you're interested, please join us down in Houston for SpaceCom and join us for the fun activities down there. So then finally, whenever you think about your technology, whenever you think about companies, if we have serial entrepreneurs, one thing that I would like to ask is that as you're thinking about technologies and you look for technologies to be able to seed your companies, think about looking up first. Thinking about the technologies that we have there that might be able to transform life on the earth. You'll be surprised what you'll find in our website, and you'll be surprised at how easy it is to be able to connect with us through the New York Space Alliance. And what I love this evening is being able to share a stage with 2 companies that have our successes. You know, it's one thing to hear NASA talk about it, but I love being able to have the companies that actually took our technology out and are transforming life here. And so first, I want to be able to start off with Thornton Tomasetti to be able to introduce Elizabeth, who will share what they've done with NASA technology, how a fixed structure in Brooklyn was able to leverage a rocket that goes up into space. And so with that, Elizabeth.